What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants hold the 25th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. This offseason in free agency, they loaded up on playmakers. They signed Paris Campbell. They extended Darius Slayton. They traded for Darren Waller. Are they done? No, it doesn't seem like it. The Giants are still meeting with some of the top wide receivers in this upcoming draft class. Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. They met with Quentin Johnston at the Combine. They're still heavily interested in drafting a wide receiver with the 25th overall pick. But what happens if the Giants get a little phone call and they have an opportunity to trade for a proven commodity rather than rolling the dice with the 25th overall pick on an NFL draft prospect? That's what we want to discuss in today's episode. Talk about how the Giants can kind of get creative with that 25th overall pick, potentially trade it for a proven NFL wide receiver to build around in their offense and combine their talents with Daniel Jones, continue to build that supporting cast around him, and hopefully have a very successful 2023 season. So that's what we're going to go ahead and discuss right here in this episode. Make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your initial thoughts on potentially trading the 25th overall pick for a wide receiver?
I'm doing fantastic. It's getting better weather in New York City as the days go by. It's getting warmer. I'm excited for spring. There's more sunlight out until like 7, 8 p.m. these days. I'm getting happy, my friends, and I'm sure you guys living in New York are as well. I know Anthony's in the land of sunshine down in Florida, and I hope you're having a fantastic day yourself. But yes, trading the 25th overall pick for a proven commodity at receiver is certainly in the cards. Now, we know the Buffalo Bills did this just 2 years ago with Stephon Diggs, so it's certainly something that is I wouldn't say probable. I'd say there's a percentage of a chance that this happens. And there are guys out there that do make sense. Now, this is only going to happen, I think, if the Giants really are dead set on finding themselves a receiver and all of their top options are off the board. Now, I do still think that cornerback could be in the cards as well. I know we've discussed a lot of different options there. Devin Witherspoon, of course. You spoke about one guy yesterday, or you have an episode coming up, a breakdown of a specific cornerback, so keep an eye out for that as well. But there's some good players. There are some really, really fun. I know Christian Gonzalez is going to be probably way off the board by the time he gets to us. Deontay Banks, I believe, is another one that's been highly recommended to the Giants lately. But the receivers, obviously, you have the big names, JSN, you got Jalen Hyatt, who may be there at 25, you have Zay Flowers, you got Quentin Johnston, who people seem to not really want anymore. Then, of course, you got Jordan Addison, who we love. So a lot of talent. Really depends. Are the Giants willing to wait and see? Are they going to want to draft up and get their guy of choice, rookie contract and all, but you have unproven commodities when it comes to drafting guys in the first round. Now, there are a couple names that stand out as potential trade pieces that they could look to flip that 25th overall pick for that are still on the rookie deals. Notably, Jerry Jeudy and Brandon Aiyuk. Looking at Jeudy, the Giants were in contact with Jerry Jeudy and the Denver Broncos regarding a potential trade, but they just simply want too much. A lot of teams were looking to actually get him, but they're just asking for way too much. Brandon Aiyuk, another guy that's probably going to warrant a first-round pick. A lot of Giants fans really like the aspect or the concept, rather, of trading for Brandon Aiyuk because he is a nasty route runner, just coming off his first 1,000-yard season. He had 8 touchdowns. He is a matchup nightmare, and he fits our scheme to perfection. He fits what Brian Dable and Mike Kafka want to do to a T. He's fast. He can expand the field. And can I actually say, I wrote an article this morning about him and the concept of trading the 25th overall pick. This is just a wild statistic to me, right? You can agree with me, yes or no, that the 49ers have a very run-based heavy offense. They don't execute a lot of plays really far down the field. A lot of dink and dunk, a lot of well-schemed running plays. You would agree with that, right? Okay. So now that you've agreed with that, let me give you a statistic that really confused me because I was looking at Brandon Aiyuk, how many, yards he had last year, the depth of his yardage. By the way, he had his highest drop rate, 7.7% his rookie year, 6.7% last year. Doesn't drop the football. 75% of his snaps were out wide last season and about 25% in the slot. So those are around his career averages. So he's able to go inside and out. This is crazy, though. Aiyuk was targeted 18 times on throws 20-plus yards downfield last year. And Daniel Jones only attempted 26 throws the entire season to any receiver downfield, 20-plus yards last season. That's crazy to me. Aiyuk almost matched him alone in a run-based scheme that does not target downfield throws. He almost matched Daniel Jones' total attempts. So you look at a player that can do a lot for you downfield and offer a playmaker in that facet. He's a great fit for this Giants team. Now, we haven't heard a lot of links. No one's been really saying anything about it. We don't even know if Aiyuk is available. But if he was, I would trade the 25th overall pick for him in a hot second, because I do think that he is a proven player coming off his first 1,000-yard season with 8 scores. He's electric, man. This is a player who would turn our offense around and really add a consistent wide receiver that is one of the best route runners in football. Again, this is all like hypothetical, but the aspect and the idea of trading the 25th overall pick for a player like this, if it were available, is certainly enticing to me.
Well, I'm also enticed by this idea. I did the breakdown over a month ago at this point with Diggy on the channel. Go back and search for it if you haven't seen already. We did a film breakdown on Brandon Aiyuk and kind of discussed the pros and cons of a potential trade. And we both kind of just sat there and debated, like, is he worth the 25th overall pick? Would this be a second-round pick? We were looking at it. And ultimately, I agree. I do think that Brandon Aiyuk is worth the 25th overall pick. However, I will say, I want to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, Alex. There are some concerns that I have. Now, if you take a look at his career, I believe he only has 4 total 100-yard receiving games. So the Giants, looking for that WR1, a guy who can catch 10 passes a game, go for over 100 yards per game, that kind of player, I don't know if Brandon Aiyuk actually truly is that player. Now, he's a great player. He can go for 80 yards per game, 60 to 80, absolutely, and he can be very reliable for you. I love his ability to go deep, as you just mentioned, Alex. He's a phenomenal route runner. There's few receivers in the NFL who are shiftier than Brandon Aiyuk. He can make an instant impact in this offense, perfect scheme fit. I absolutely agree with you on that facet. But when you're taking a look at his total productivity and kind of the amount of volume that he handles, he doesn't necessarily handle a bunch of volume in that 49ers offense. A lot of that does have to do with the fact that, you're right, the scheme is very run heavy. They rely on their running backs, open up play action, then a lot of short passes, and then they take their deep shots with Brandon Aiyuk. But he also benefits playing alongside Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is their main workhorse in the receiving game, so Brandon Aiyuk gets the second cornerbacks. He also gets a lot of opportunities to be the deep shot guy while everyone focuses in on Deebo Samuel. Now, the Giants, I do believe that with Darren Waller in the offense, they can get defenses to focus on him and open up some deep shots for a guy like Brandon Aiyuk if they were to trade for him. But I will say there are some concerns that I have, and that's kind of where I get to the point, Alex. Is it less risky to trade for a proven commodity in Brandon Aiyuk compared to drafting a wide receiver with the 25th overall pick? If the idea here, the concept is to go with someone who's more proven, is Brandon Aiyuk really all that proven? Can he be a WR1 in an NFL offense? Right now, he's one of the best WR2s in the league. No doubt. He is phenomenal, and he's very young, and he has potential to get even better as the years go on. However, can he fully step into the Giants offense and make an instant impact as their primary receiving threat? I don't know. That's where I get a little bit of a reservation on this whole idea. Again, I'm a huge fan of Brandon Aiyuk. I'm a proponent of making this trade, but just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, there are some valid questions to be had, Alex. So when you kind of look at that and you look at Brandon Aiyuk, maybe some of those concerns, do you think that it is more worth it to trade for a proven, kind of unproven commodity in Brandon Aiyuk? Or would you rather just roll the dice on the potential of an NFL draft wide receiver prospect with the 25th overall pick?
So I'll tell you this right now. I was doing some math, and he was averaging 7 targets a game during the regular season. I think wide receiver ones generally should be getting a little bit more than that, but I also think it's heavy scheme related. You know what I mean? I think it's heavily like how the type of targets he was getting. They did target him quite a decent amount downfield. But if you look at his, we can break down his receiving depth for you. Last season, he had, 6 targets behind the line of scrimmage, and then 56 short, 0 to 9 yards. So they really used him a lot. When it came to, short yardage concepts where there were slants, drag routes, maybe, they didn't really use him on the screen game, which would suggest it was behind the line of scrimmage. He dropped 3 passes and 56 targets on the short portions of the field, so he's good hands. 6 foot, 200 pounds, really good size. And look, you mentioned how he didn't average over 100 yards per game, and I think that not many receivers do. But you said he's a high-end wide receiver, too, in a scheme that really focuses on running the football, and that got Christian McCaffrey at the deadline. So you're asking, a good question, right? This was his first 1,000-yard season, and that was with 40 quarterbacks going through the ranks at the 49ers, right? They had a quarterback a different one every week. They had a superstar running back added to the mix midseason. and they have a run-focused scheme to begin with. So the fact that he's accumulating 1,000 yards with all those negative variables affecting him is pretty impressive to me. And I feel like if you installed him in an offense that really maximized a receiver of his nature, and you had a system that wasn't heavily run dependent, but more so explosive plays, more efficient throws, getting the ball to him in space, pushing the field. You look at the 49ers, they don't have a lot of speed on that team aside. Deebo Samuel's fast, but he's more powerful than fast. They got Jawan Jennings, who's not very fast. Like, they don't have a lot of speed at the receiver position. So if you actually look at Aiyuk, like, he's the speed guy, right? The Giants have Darius Slayton. You got Paris Campbell. You got Wandale, who's shifty. You have some really fast guys. Waller's one of the fastest tight ends in football. They're going to be looking to push the field deep. Guys like Aiyuk, who rack in targets and catches in the short to intermediate ranges, they're going to have a lot more room to work with. So the yards after the catch element is going to be a lot more predominant and a lot more important for this Giants team. So I would make the argument. You said you were mentioning, like, kind of playing devil's advocate. I would say scheme related. A Miami, or rather a Bills, like a Buffalo mashup with Kansas City Chiefs, which is kind of what Mike Kafka and Dable did, and you really end up building this offense to attack the strengths of each individual player. Aiyuk would be maximized. He's not going to be hidden behind Deebo Samuel. He's not going to be hidden behind the Russian roulette of quarterbacks they got going on over there. He's not going to be hidden behind a run-heavy scheme. And George Kittle, of course, another big element there. He's going to be maximized, man. He's going to be 7-8 targets a game, but they're going to be good, efficient targets, and they're going to be intermediate, deep throws, and they're going to be attacking him. They're not going to be, asking him to do, smaller kind of roles and just pick up a couple of yards here and pick up a first down. They're going to be asking him to be a playmaker and an explosive one at that with really good hands. So I think it's more about how you use a player than it is how they've been used, and which is my argument to why trading for Aiyuk would be a monster move, and I think that I would do it. I would trade 25 for him because he has 2 years left on his rookie deal, and that matches up exactly with Daniel Jones's situation, right? And Saquon Barkley too. So it's like, if they want to move on from Jones, if they end up having to do that, and obviously we prefer Jones to be the guy and for a very, very long time. But if worst case happens, that contract with Aiyuk expires at the same exact time, and you're able to reset. Maybe you extend Aiyuk, and you have a wide receiver one, and you go out and get a new quarterback, whatever it might be. So best case scenario, you have a really good situation financially on your hands, and it all matches up perfectly. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that aspect of it I really like. And again, I am a proponent of trading the 25th overall pick for Brandon Aiyuk. He's very young and he has a lot of potential. You've just mentioned it. He's got a couple years left on his rookie deal. He's only 25 years old. So the big part of this is, so let's take a look at the Daniel Jones contract, right? I made an argument a few weeks ago. A lot of viewers commented down below that they agreed with me that the Giants were not necessarily paying Daniel Jones for what he's accomplished so far, but they were more prominently paying him for the potential that he has to do a whole lot more down the road. Like, yes, he accomplished enough to get the deal, but the amount of money that they're paying for him is really predicated on the fact that he's been getting better every year, and if he continues on this trajectory, that $40 million on average annual is going to look like a bargain because he's probably going to start to reach new heights and be a much better player. And you can make the same argument for Brandon Aiyuk. At 25 years old, he actually just turned 25 12 days ago, so he's freshly 25. This is a very young wide receiver who has potential to get better and better every year. 6 foot, 200 pounds. A lot of people like to refer to him as kind of like a smaller, shiftier guy. I really don't think so. I think he has a lot more mass than people give him credit for, and he's a lot stronger on the outside. This is an outside receiver. I don't want fans to think, oh, Brandon Aiyuk plays in the slot. No, he plays on the outside. Maybe he plays more of a Z than an X, but he still does play on the outside. And I think that when you look at that, the fact that he is only 25 years old, is on his rookie deal, there's a lot of potential here for him to, yes, right now I said he's a very high-end WR2. Can he be a WR1? There's absolutely all the potential in the world for him to turn into a true number one receiving threat, considering the fact that he is only 25 years old, has yet to reach his prime, is only scratching the surface of his potential. So Brandon Aiyuk, if you're trading for him and you're investing in a player like this, you're investing in a guy who is only going to get better, and that's why I really do get on board with this. But some of the points that you made, Alex, in terms of trading for a receiver who maybe wasn't used to their full potential in their offense. That also reminds me of another guy that we want to discuss in today's episode, and that is Jerry Jeudy. Now, we know that the New York Giants have shown significant interest in Jerry Jeudy. They reportedly pursued him quite heavily at the trade deadline. It didn't come to fruition. The asking price for Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, for what it's worth, on the Denver Broncos end is way too high. They are asking for way too much draft capital, right? But let's say that the New York Giants, they're in the 2023 NFL draft. Their mission is to draft a wide receiver. But they get to the 25th overall pick. They're on the clock. And, okay, Quentin Johnson's gone. Jordan Addison's gone. Zay Flowers is gone. All the best guys just off the board. What do the Giants do if their main mission is to draft a wide receiver? Do they pivot, take a center? Do they pivot, take a cornerback? Or do they finally say, okay, now this 25th overall pick, I'm willing to sacrifice it for Jerry Jeudy? Is that a situation that you could see unfolding, Alex? All the receivers off the board, and you really want to get that last piece in the offense, get that wide receiver. Is that where the 25th overall pick starts to meet the value of Jerry Jeudy just because of the need of that position and getting a guy who's a proven commodity, like you mentioned? Do you think that then he becomes worthy of the 25th overall pick? Or do you just go ahead, take the best player available, roll the dice on a draft prospect?
So my take is pretty straightforward here. I think, in my personal opinion, there are players that are worthwhile taking a shot on when it comes to trading 25. I'm not the biggest Jerry Jeudy fan. I think that, and the reason is that I like him as a player. Don't get me wrong. He's a phenomenal route runner. Has had his fair share of drops. The injuries concern me. I don't want any more injury-prone players, man. We keep going through this gauntlet of guys who keep getting injured, keep going down and missing time. And the turf can only go so far. I know they put monolithic, whatever the hell, turf in it. Eventually, Mara said he wants to transition to more of a sod and real grass stadium, which would be dope. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. It's very expensive. And as we know, these NFL owners are rather cheap at times. So I kind of feel as though Jerry Jeudy going after an injury-riddled player is not my preference personally, especially for the asking price that the Denver Broncos want. It's not gonna. You're not gonna sell me on it. Aiyuk, much better health history, and ultimately, he has 2 years left on his deal. I think Jerry Jeudy. I don't know. Does he have 2 years left on his deal? Maybe he has 2 or 1. I think he might have 2 as well. I think was he the same draft class as Aiyuk? He was. Okay. So he was the same draft class, but ultimately, I think it depends on the player. Like, it adjusts based on that. And with that being said, if Aiyuk isn't available, there's not a guy that I generally would feel comfortable trading 25 with. Go with the best cornerback. I think that cornerback is a position that we desperately need support in, just a little bit less than wide receiver. You don't just do something to do something. You got to have a plan. You got to be sure about it, especially when it comes to the draft. So personally, if there's not a guy the Giants are very confident in, you don't bow down to someone's demands. You take the best cornerback available and prepare for the future after Adoree Jackson, because they didn't extend him. They didn't restructure his contract. They're set on letting him walk next offseason, I think. So they need to be drafting someone this year with the intent that they are going to be replacing him at some point. So I do feel as though if it's not going to be a receiver, it's going to be a cornerback, and it's going to be someone that has cornerback 1 upside that can eventually supplement the loss of Adoree Jackson. So no, to answer your question, I'm not just giving away 25 for any player just because they want this and we need that. I'm going to stick to our guns and commit to our draft profiles and actually stick with building this team the right way instead of making premature moves that the player is a risk and, we're just bending over to match a demand.
So I tend to agree with you, but again, I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate, see if I can change your mind, maybe even just a little bit, because I want to talk about Brandon Aiyuk versus Jerry Jeudy, because I think that's kind of where this conversation wraps up nicely. Brandon Aiyuk, we just mentioned it. He's only 25 years old, freshly 25 years old, has another year left on his deal. He's entering, I believe, the final year of his contract, but then the 5th-year option, so he's got 2 years left on the deal. Same situation for Jerry Jeudy. Brandon Aiyuk, in his rookie season 2020, did miss 4 games with an injury. Now, if you look at Jerry Jeudy, he missed 5 games in 2021 with an injury, 1 game in 2020, and only 2 this past season. So they're actually pretty comparable in terms of health history, in my opinion. I actually don't think there's that much of a difference between the two. Jerry Jeudy obviously had a lot of missed time in 2021, missed about a month of football, but this past year, he only missed a couple of games, and he went for 972 total yards, over 1,000 yards from scrimmage if you actually add in his 40 rushing yards, 1,112, and 6 touchdowns. He had a really good year in a very, very broken Denver Broncos offense. But one of the main selling points that we just had for Brandon Aiyuk, Alex, is the fact that he's 25, has yet to reach his full potential. Jerry Jeudy is 23. He will be 24 by the time that the regular season starts, but he's even younger. He has even more potential, arguably. There is even more room for Jerry Jeudy to grow, a longer shelf life for this player. So maybe that might change your mind a little bit when you look at it. Again, he played in a very broken offense with the Denver Broncos over the last few years. I mean, for God's sake, he had Drew Lock as his starting quarterback for a couple of years there. That was putrid. And then Russell Wilson all of a sudden turned into arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL last season. So imagine if he had Daniel Jones throwing to him. If he had Danny Dimes, he had Brian Dable, who, again, Brian Dable has the connection with Jerry Jeudy because he coached him for a little bit at Alabama. I think there is a way that you can put this into perspective and kind of say maybe it does make sense for the New York Giants. He's going to be 24 years old this season. His health history is, yes, maybe a little bit of a concern, but how great of a concern is it? I think it's a little overblown. I think it's a little blown out of proportion with Jerry Jeudy. Again, a player who has flashed a ton of talent in very bad offenses with very bad schemes, has the potential to maybe go into a new offensive scheme, just a change of scenery at 24 years old, get coached up the right way, and have a truly stunning breakout and establish himself as a wide receiver one. Let's not forget how great of a prospect Jerry Jeudy was when he was coming out of college at Alabama. And again, he was so great at Alabama, and for a time at Alabama, he was coached by Brian Dable, so maybe there is some influence in there that made him such a great wide receiver at Alabama. So again, I do get really excited by the prospects of reuniting Jerry Jeudy with Brian Dable. So I guess with all of those fun facts that I kind of just threw out at you with Jerry Jeudy, did I change your mind maybe a little bit, or are you still standing firm and saying, you know what, this guy just isn't worth the 25th overall pick to me?
Well, I still prefer Aiyuk personally. The right side of his body has been destroyed over time. If you just look at his injury history, according to draft structures, I'm not going to put much stock in this, but 85% chance of injury in 2023. I mean, most players go through something. He's able to fight through some injuries, so that's definitely something to be considered. But that right ankle is what really concerns me, right? He's had the same injury 3 times. To that right ankle, all of it a pedal ankle sprain. And then, in 2021, he had that grade 3 high ankle sprain. If you've ever had a high ankle sprain, it's, you really never fully recover. You can always feel it. You can always, you're one step away from that injury again, especially on turf. I'm pretty sure that Denver plays on grass. So, you add him to the mix here on a turf field in crappy weather, and it's cold, and not to say Denver's not cold because it certainly is, but on top of the whole situation in our field, like it scares me is all, right? Like, I'm just scared. Like, I'm perpetually scared because of all the injuries we've sustained in the past, which is why, like, I'm not willing to give up a massive draft haul. And for what it's worth, the Giants already would have given it up if they thought he was worth it. You know what I mean? If they wanted the 25th overall pick and the Giants said he still has the juice, he still got it, they would have given up the pick already. Like, why would they wait? You know what I mean? I guess they could drive the price down maybe a little bit. There's arguments to be made in that regard, but I personally feel as though 25 is too high for me for Jerry Jeudy. The injury concerns and the fact he's never had a season over 1,000 yards. Yes, he was good last year in a broken offense with Russell Wilson under helm, but it's still Russell Wilson. It's still Russell Wilson. So you have to believe that things are still even in a bad offense. He's gonna get the ball to his wide receiver one or his top gun, and I'm pretty sure Cortland Sutton missed time again, and they also lost Tim Patrick on week 1 or 2 to a torn ACL. So he fell into a role. Yes, he was healthy, but he fell into a role where he was automatically getting way more target share, than anybody else. So with that being said, he still wasn't able to eclipse 1,000 yards. And, I'm not necessarily going to sit here and tell you that he's not wide receiver one capable, because I definitely think he's good enough to be a wide receiver one. But there are concerns that I think need to be brought up, and Aiyuk is my preference. Look, if they ended up trading 25 for him and they thought, this is a worthwhile deal, I'm going to trust Brian Dable and Joe Shane. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to trust him. I'm going to say, okay, if they think that's the right move, I can buy into that. I can say I'm fine if that. They know a lot more than we do, and any of us listening and watching what's going on with the Giants. They're well more inverse and in line with all the recent developments and whatnot. So I'm gonna buy the hype if they do it. But right now, I'd rather buy Aiyuk's hype if he was available. Again, it's all hypothetical. We have no idea. So I think, did you convince me? You swayed my opinion a little bit in terms of him being not as much of an injury concern as maybe I thought he was, but that right ankle still very much concerns me, and I still would prefer to go in a different direction if we had a choice.
Yeah, listen, I think there's plenty of genuine concerns when it comes to trading for Jerry Jeudy, and I think the concerns for Jeudy are far more concerning than the concerns for Brandon Aiyuk, for what it's worth. But I do think a lot of Giants fans are kind of sleeping on the potential of Jerry Jeudy and the fact that he still is a young player who hasn't reached his potential and has really a lot of room to grow into a WR1 role. So I kind of convinced myself a little bit, and I kind of got myself a little bit more on board with Jerry Jeudy. Again, I do think the 25th overall pick is a little rich for my liking. And now, if you're talking the 57th overall pick, I think I'm sending that for Jerry Jeudy. I think I'm doing it. I think it's worth it, in my opinion, if you take that second round pick and you send it for Jeudy. But again, it is all hypothetical, like you mentioned. We don't even know if Brandon Aiyuk is on the trade block. We do know that Sean Payton recently said that he's not trading Jerry Jeudy. However, a lot of conflicting reports saying that the Broncos were calling teams trying to trade Jerry Jeudy. So who knows where the truth lies? But again, I do think there is something to be said about if the Giants are dead set on finding a wide receiver in the first round, they get to the 25th overall pick, all their guys are off the board, they might just have to pivot, get creative, and throw that 25th overall pick to a veteran and try and get them on the roster as a WR1. I do think there's a lot of creative avenues that the Giants can go here to find that primary receiving threat. And of course, we're going to continue to break down all those different options and variables right here on the channel, Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you do not miss an episode. And we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one. And let's go Giants.